impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America, your global pit stop for the latest news and headlines from the United States and around the world. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of all the day's top stories, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Vladimir Putin is sworn in for a new 6-year term as Russia's president. Putin will embark on a record-breaking 5th term as he consolidates power in the country. The judge in Donald Trump's hush money trial slaps the former president with a $1,000 fine for violating a gag order. This just days after Donald Trump was fined $9,000 for criminal contempt of court. A knife-wielding man kills 2 and wounds at least 21 at a hospital in southwestern China. Local police detain the suspected attacker and launch an investigation. India holds its 3rd phase of voting across 11 states and territories as the world's largest election continues. India Prime Minister Narendra Modi cast his ballot in his home state of Gujarat. And a multi-story building collapses in South Africa's city of George, leaving 5 dead and several wounded. At least 30 construction workers have been rescued from the rubble. We begin in the Middle East, where Hamas has accepted a ceasefire proposal put forward by Qatar and Egypt. Now, the proposal includes a 3-stage truce, each lasting 42 days. The first stage includes an exchange of an unknown number of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners, along with a partial withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. In the second stage, the proposal details a complete and permanent halt to Israeli military activity. And the final stage would focus on post-war reconstruction of Gaza. Now, Israel says that it does not accept this deal as it was not proposed by them, nor does it meet their demands for the release of all hostages being held by Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dispatched a delegation to meet the negotiators in Cairo. Meanwhile, the United States says that it is closely studying the ceasefire proposal accepted by Hamas.
There has been a response from Hamas to the hostage deal. We're currently reviewing that response, and we're discussing it with our partners in the region. Director Burns, as you know, is there, and he's working this in real time on the ground.
Celebrations erupted across Gaza, particularly in Rafah, which serves as the final lifeline for over 1 million Palestinians.
I can't describe to you my joy. We left Gaza. My children have been moved around, my girls have been moved around, living the life of tents, and today we bid farewell to the tents, and I bid farewell to the world. I thank everyone who stood with me, and I thank everyone who stood with Palestine. God is with us.
However, the joy and euphoria expressed by Palestinians was short-lived, as Israel's war cabinet announced a ground operation in Rafah despite Hamas accepting a ceasefire proposal. In fact, Israel bombed Rafah with repeated airstrikes, which lasted nearly half an hour. And Prime Minister Netanyahu also ordered tank battalions to begin their deployment in Rafah. Now, as Israel launched this Rafah operation, President Biden spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu over the phone, warning the Israeli leader of going forward with the military offensive.
The two leaders spoke about our efforts to secure the hostage deal, including through these ongoing talks today. During the call, at the president's urging, Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to ensure that the Kerem Shalom crossing is back open for humanitarian assistance for those in need. And I also want to take a moment to address the latest reports now out of Rafah, which was also a topic of discussion on the call. I'll reiterate again that we cannot and we will not speak for IDF operations, but we've made clear our views about operations in Rafah that could potentially put more than 1 million innocent people at greater risk. During his call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, the president again made this clear.
Meanwhile, protests erupted in Israel against Prime Minister Netanyahu, urging him to accept the proposal and secure the release of the Israeli hostages.
We expect for the Israeli government to take this deal to save all the remaining hostages who are still alive. Save lives. Don't talk about fighting and blood. We heard about yesterday of 3 soldiers being killed by the missiles launched from Gaza. Stop the killing, save lives, lives of hostages and lives of Israeli soldiers.
Now, Israel maintains that despite Hamas accepting a ceasefire proposal, the operation in Rafah will commence as planned. The Israeli army has even airdropped leaflets into Rafah ordering Palestinians to evacuate the city. The current state of influx only begs more questions, like did Prime Minister Netanyahu reject the proposal accepted by Hamas because it doesn't meet Israeli demands, or is this an attempt by Netanyahu to cling to power by extending the 7-month-long war? And here in the United States, Columbia University has canceled its main graduation ceremony, highlighting security concerns. The Ivy League school was forced to take the drastic step after Columbia became the catalyst setting off campus protests across the world, with students demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Now, instead of a grand ceremony featuring a renowned speaker delivering the keynote address, smaller gatherings will be held by different programs within the university. And now graduating seniors who've endured all-nighters or prickly professors and are finally on the cusp of this momentous occasion by college find themselves dejected that the decision of universities to cancel commencement ceremonies.
I think it's deeply saddening, and honestly, I'm very angry. I'm a senior, and for my high school graduation, that was canceled too because of COVID. So now you come to this next milestone in your life, and you don't get to celebrate that either. So it's just kind of back to back. It's really frustrating and saddening that I haven't been able to experience a full graduation normal.
It's just difficult. I think we've all had a really hard last few weeks, and for it to end this way, I mean, in the grand scheme of things too, like we started online as freshmen, so in totality, it's really difficult to end this way, and it was something that I wanted to share, and because we're having the separate graduations with schools, but I wanted to share it with people who are from Columbia as well.
Even the White House had to step in, calling the graduation ceremony's cancellation unfortunate.
And it is unfortunate that a small group of people went too far and cost their classmates this important event. We've talked about it many times from here. When it comes to commencement day and when it comes to speaking at commencement events, this is something that the president has done for some time now, and he understands that this is a moment of joy, a moment of celebration, and we feel for them. We feel for each of the graduates, and we're going to continue to reiterate the president's comments and statements and what we've said from this podium, to call for protests peacefully.
Meanwhile, other universities have also begun canceling graduation ceremonies or shifting them away from their main campuses. Now, this comes after pro-Palestinian protesters disrupted the graduation ceremonies at Indiana University and the University of Michigan. Now, the University of Southern California was the first to cancel its main commencement ceremony, followed by Columbia. Meanwhile, The Ohio State University, Northeastern University in Massachusetts, and Emory University in Georgia held their graduations at venues away from their campuses. And other universities are now issuing ultimatums to student protesters saying, fold up your encampments or risk the cancellation of graduation ceremonies. And at the same time, police officials continue to crack down on demonstrators as arrests on college campuses surpass 2,100. What started out as a call for peace in Gaza and the condemnation of relentless Israeli bombing against Palestinians has now cost thousands of university students their chance to memorialize their crowning achievement to walk across the stage with a college degree in hand. And shifting focus to Central Africa, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo has called out Western nations for their attitude and moral lecturing toward Africa. In a recent interview, President Felix Tshisekedi said that China and Russia were much less sneaky than the West. He made the remarks while talking about the transparency and ease doing business with both Russia and China. President Tshisekedi believes that Beijing and Moscow manage ties with his country without quote-unquote arrogance. And he emphasized that both nations treated his country better compared to the West. He also added that Russia and China do not have the desire to quote-unquote lecture African nations, which is why they're more successful in Africa. The president further said the DRC has the right to strengthen its ties with Russia and China, and he believes both nations will come out on top in the near future. In January, Chinese companies reportedly invested up to $7 billion in the DRC's mining infrastructure. Russian President Vladimir Putin sees the DRC as a promising partner for investment and cooperation. Last month, a survey showed that the United States is losing its soft power edge across the African continent. In 2023, the approval rating of Washington slipped 3 points to 56% in Africa, while China recorded its highest leadership approval rating in Africa for the last decade at 58%. Russia's approval rating stood at 42%, up from 34% the previous year. And now the DRC president's comments come as Western nations accuse China of attempting to colonize Africa by using a debt trap policy. The policy allegedly seeks to keep African nations dependent on loans from Beijing. Arguments repeatedly made by the West, arguments repeatedly denied by China. And to Russia now, where a love affair has landed an American soldier in trouble, big trouble. Russian authorities have arrested U.S. Staff Sergeant Gordon Black for allegedly stealing money from his girlfriend. He was based in South Korea and was returning to his home country. However, the soldier decided to make a side trip to visit his girlfriend in Russia without seeking permission from his superiors. Now, if convicted, Staff Sergeant Black might have to spend 5 years in a Russian prison. Our next report explains the sordid details.
The United States and Russia continue to have strained relations over one thing or another. Sometimes it's a war, other times it's sanctions. This time it's a soldier in love, or rather a love affair. Russia has arrested an American soldier who was visiting his girlfriend in the port city of Vladivostok. Staff Sergeant Gordon Black has been accused of stealing over $2,000 from his girlfriend. And now the American trooper faces 5 years in prison on charges of criminal misconduct. US officials say that the 34-year-old soldier was stationed in South Korea and was in the process of returning home to Texas. Instead, he decided to make a side trip to Russia to see his longtime Russian girlfriend. Mind you, Black is a married man and his family has been notified by the US Army. Now the White House has also reacted to Black's arrest, rather in a roundabout manner.
Minutes that a U.S. soldier has been detained in Russia. This apparently happened in the last few days. The reporting is he had been stationed in Korea, traveled to Russia on his own. He's been accused of some sort of theft. Is the administration aware of this report?
Yes.
What can you tell us about what happened?
I can't really say much about it right now, Jonathan. I hope you can understand that. And certainly it's a better question put to our DoD colleagues, but we are aware of this case.
According to US Army officials, the Russian woman had also lived in South Korea. She was romantically involved with Staff Sergeant Black, but the pair had a domestic dispute last year. After that, the American soldier's girlfriend left South Korea and moved back to Russia. It's not known whether she was forced to leave or if Korean authorities played a role in the matter. Now, after months, the infantryman wanted to rekindle the affair with his girlfriend, bringing him to Vladivostok. US officials say that Staff Sergeant Black traveled to Russia without permission from his superiors. The soldier was reportedly on leave as he left South Korea to redeploy back home to Fort Hood, Texas. Now, it's unclear if US service members are specifically banned from traveling to Russia, though the State Department has repeatedly warned American citizens against visiting Russia due to the risk of wrongful detentions. Staff Sergeant Black's arrest has also sparked concerns of his well-being among American politicians. Congressman Michael McCaul said he is deeply concerned by reports of the soldier's arrest. He said, and I quote, "Putin has a long history of holding American citizens hostage. A warning to all citizens. As the State Department has said, it's not safe to travel to Russia." Now, the US Embassy in Moscow is reportedly seeking consular access to the soldier. Meanwhile, Russia has remanded the American soldier in custody until July 2nd. Staff Sergeant Black is just one of several Americans detained in Russia. Moscow is known to be holding former Marine Paul Whelan and journalist Evan Gershkovich in prison. Other detainees include American musician Travis Leak and schoolteacher Mark Fogel. The latest arrest only complicates ties between the US and Russia, which have grown increasingly tense amid the ongoing war in Ukraine.
And finally to South Korea. World-famous boy band BTS, known for setting the stage on fire with their music, now find themselves in the eye of the storm. They've been accused of rigging charts to boost their album sales back in 2017. Now, South Korea's Ministry of Culture has launched a probe into the allegations, and their fans are not happy, and South Korea apologized to BTS is now trending on social media. Our final report takes you inside the controversy.
In a world of musical bands, one name reigns supreme: BTS. This South Korean boy band group has captured the hearts of people worldwide. They're known for their catchy tunes and electrifying performances, and this has led them to the top of the music charts worldwide. K-pop music is now synonymous with BTS. Yet, amidst their meteoric rise, BTS has not been immune to scandalous sparks igniting massive fires. No one can predict when skeletons from the past might dance into the limelight, potentially causing turmoil that could take years for a celebrity to recover from. And now BTS finds itself embroiled in a controversy dating back to 2017. They've been accused of chart rigging, a practice that inflates album sales, potentially changing their position on the music charts. South Korea's Ministry of Culture will likely order an investigation against BTS and its agency HYBE. The investigation will look into accusations of the band being involved in chart rigging practices in 2017. This comes after the ministry received several anonymous petitions asking for an investigation against BTS. The petitioners want to know why the band's agency was blackmailed for chart rigging practices and why the agency HYBE paid off the blackmailers. Adding fuel to the fire, another petition calls for the revocation of BTS's Order of Cultural Merit, an honor bestowed upon them in 2018 by South Korea's Culture Ministry. The severity of the allegations casts a shadow over the group's past achievements and integrity. So here's what happened. Reports suggest that in 2017, BTS's agency was blackmailed by 4 people. They claimed that the agency used expedient marketing strategies to bolster album sales. BTS allegedly sold 100 to 150,000 albums for The Most Beautiful Moment in Life Part 1. At that time, their popularity quotient was not as high as it is today. This manipulation is called sajegi in South Korea. It involves artificially inflating sales figures through mass purchasing or other deceptive means to elevate album rankings on music charts. However, HYBE allegedly opted to settle the matter by paying off the blackmailers. But later, one of the blackmailers was sentenced to a year in prison, while the other 3 were asked to pay hefty fines. However, the term sajegi marketing was used in the ruling. The court reportedly stated that one of the blackmailers made a sajegi marketing deal with HYBE and later threatened the company based on that account. As the reports of this likely investigation started doing the rounds, the BTS army, who are fervent supporters of the band, took to social media to express their discontent with the unfolding situation. Some online users wrote South Korea is nothing without BTS, while another wrote there is nothing lower than throwing these men under the bus. For a while, South Korea apologized to BTS also trended on social media. However, controversy is no stranger to BTS. In 2022, Kim Tae-young sent fans into a frenzy after he was spotted smoking at the Grammys 2022 venue. In 2015, BTS leader RM was accused of copying a lyric from another rapper. In 2014, BTS were called out for objectifying women in their song War of Hormone. But they emerged out of these chaotic situations. As BTS navigates these turbulent waters, their army watches with bated breath, waiting to see what happens next. But one thing remains certain: their impact on the world of music and culture. BTS continues to inspire and captivate, leaving an indelible mark on the tapestry of pop history. So did they cheat to reach the top, or is this a targeted controversy against BTS?
That's our show for today. We thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden. How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual. I'm Utsav Parekh and here are the top stories of the day.